Let's talk about Barry Allen the Flash in my DC cinematic universe. When Barry Allen was just 10 years old, his parents were having their family friends, the Wests, over for dinner one night. And while William and Nadine West were off in the kitchen getting something, they had left Nora and Henry Allen alone. And all of a sudden, in a bright flash of yellow light, Nora lay dead on the ground, stabbed multiple times, and Henry stood over her, knife in hand and covered in her blood. Henry was arrested and blamed for the murder of his wife. He was sentenced to life in prison, but Barry knew this was wrong. Barry and his friend Iris were upstairs playing at the time, and Barry was running downstairs to ask his mom a question, and that's when he saw a yellow whirlwind surround his mom and her fall down dead. He knows this could not have been his father. But no one believed him. They simply believed that the traumatic incident that this kid had witnessed had altered his memory, and he was trying to fool himself into believing that his father couldn't have done this. And so Barry went to live with another family friend until adulthood. But his entire life, he dedicated himself to proving his father innocent. And that led him to become a forensic scientist for the Central City PD CSI. And then, one fateful night when Barry is working late in the lab, lightning strikes him. It comes through the window and hits him, sending him flying into a shelf full of chemicals. He is covered in all of them and horribly burned all over his body. And he is rushed to the hospital. But something weird happens. On the way to the hospital, while he's still in the back of the ambulance, all of his burns heal. Almost instantly. The paramedics have no idea what's going on. They just look away, and when they look back, he's totally fine laying in the bed. He wakes up even not knowing what just happened. And so by the time they actually get to the hospital, Barry is up, standing, and totally fine. He is let go, and the paramedics just assumed that they'd gotten it wrong, like maybe he was dirty or something. They have nothing to explain how this could have happened. And so Barry goes home terrified to his wife. And the next day, Barry wakes up to go into work. He gets out of bed and he heads to the shower. He turns the shower on, and no water comes out of the shower. He assumes there must be an issue with the plumbing. So he leaves it on and he goes downstairs. Then he puts some toast in the toaster, flips it down, and the toast doesn't come out. Nothing seems to be happening. So he grabs a protein bar and he just decides to get an early start to work. Now, Barry doesn't live very far away from the CCPD headquarters, so he runs there every single day. So Barry just walks outside and starts jogging to work. He gets to work, he clocks in, and it's an incredibly slow day. He starts doing all of his lab work, but he finds that his centrifuges are broken and the computer is responding slow, so he just does anything he can do by hand. He finishes paperwork, he does any tests that he can do by hand, he just sort of finishes everything, and the weirdest part is he doesn't get any new work for the rest of the day. He finishes everything and decides maybe it's time for lunch, but then when he looks at the clock, he realizes it's only been 1 minute since he got to work. But he could swear he just worked 4 hours. Barry goes outside to the person that he had passed walking into the office, and he sees that they're in the exact same spot. They've barely moved since he last saw them. And now Barry starts panicking. He runs outside and he starts actually looking around at the world, and he sees that everything is frozen, moving at super slow motion. He runs back home through the streets of Central City freaking out, and he really freaks out when he looks up in the sky and sees a bird just suspended there. He runs back inside his house, rushes upstairs to Iris, and he shakes her awake because he is freaking out. But then we notice that as he rushes back in, and as soon as he grabs Iris, we hear water starting to run in the bathroom. We hear the toast popping downstairs. We see that this was Barry Allen's first time experiencing super speed. After that, it's a pretty typical montage of him testing himself during his time off. He figures out that he has super speed. He clocks himself, and he can run thousands of miles per hour easily. And then one day, not very long afterwards, he is just walking home, and he sees an old woman crossing the street, and he sees a car out of control speeding towards her. Now, at this time, Barry is just wearing a pair of jeans, and he's wearing his red Central City College hoodie. And he rushes over to the woman, grabs her, and gets her out of the way of the car just before it hits her. And then he runs away. But what Barry didn't know was this was caught on camera. The news airs the footage, and all you see is a red blur grabbing this woman and saving her before rushing off. And who was this old woman crossing the street? It was Judy Garrick, the daughter of Jay Garrick. The news interviews her, and she had been run around by her father a whole bunch before in her life. She knows what super speed feels like. She knows what her dad's super speed feels like. And she says that whoever saved her, that man in red that saved her life just now, that she would be honored if whoever that was would continue her father's legacy and become the new Flash. And Barry Allen sees that news report, and he is beyond moved. Justice has always been a calling of Barry's ever since that fateful day back in his childhood home. And he's been wondering what to do with these powers since he got them. And now the daughter of the original Flash has asked him to take on that mantle. And so Barry does. And Barry Allen sets onto the scene of Central City to become a superhero. As the movie progresses, we watch him learn more and more about Jay Garrick. We see him watching interviews with old Jay. We see him reading books about Jay Garrick. We even see him reading the publicly published manifesto that Jay Garrick left of all of the science behind his super speed in case anyone ever figured it out posthumously. And Barry tries to figure out how he got super speed, especially since after he tested his DNA, he's not a metahuman. The metahuman phenomenon was something that really started popping off after the 1990 Human Genome Project, when they figured out that this was a genetic thing that could happen to people. But Barry tested his DNA. There's nothing in there. Nothing was altered. Nothing at all scientifically says that he should be able to run 50,000 miles per hour, and yet he can. And meanwhile, a group of criminals known only as the Rogues, who had been successfully robbing banks for a number of years in Central City, have gotten a huge technological upgrade. After Golden Glider had recruited her boyfriend, a man named Evan McCullough, who was a technological genius, Evan started designing new specialized weapons for all of the members of the Rogues. He designed a cold gun for Glider's older brother. He designed her a pair of skates that could skate on their own hard light path that it generated itself. He designed a rod capable of altering the weather, a flamethrower that didn't require fuel, and finally his own holographic technology that could make hard light holograms that looked like anything. And now, equipped with this insanely high-tech stuff, they start robbing everything in Central City. They clear out all of the banks. They clear out some of the museums, and this all attracts the attention of the Flash. And everything comes to one final confrontation where the Rogues take over the Jay Garrick Flash Museum in Central City. And Barry Allen has to defeat the Rogues in the building dedicated to the man whose title he is trying to live up to.